Hi folks, and thanks for tuning in. This video is about my personal presets that I use on Amp Room. This is my favorite guitar and bass amp simulator, whatever. I use this always when I'm not using my real amps, you know, on tour, traveling, whatnot, or if I'm just too lazy to turn these on and wait for them to warm up and such. Because this is absolutely fantastic. Official Marshall plugins, so on. I got quite a few questions that could I do a video about, more detailed video about my presets, what's the philosophy, why, when, how, and could I also make them downloadable. So I put a link in the description below where you can download these presets. There's a couple of bass presets and a little bit more guitar presets. Without further ado, preset number 1, SD1 Ampeg. Sounds like this. This kind of clanky, mildly overdriven tone. What I have here? First, input volume, gain staging. So the way I set it is like it's around -6. It's okay, you know, when it's below low, so you don't get a wrong kind of clipping. Cool. Then this is kind of like basically a splitter box. Well, it's a split. The other signal goes to this upper level where I have bus SD1. It works on bass. Gate, Ampeg, or emulation of classic Ampeg. 8x10 cab, my key Empirical Labs compressor. And then here, and the other is just a compressor, a tube compressor, or emulation of classic Pultec, TubeTech, Danish company. They make this like real stuff nowadays. Amazing. And this mic, this is a little bit more character. It's its own thing. And then the limiter, which is also like an EQ where I boosted the lows. So the classic way of making this bass sound that has low end and has, you know, a little bit gain or more gain if you want, is to split it. So, old school way, you would record, you know, 2 tracks, DI and then amplifier. But with this, you know, you can do it all inside the amp room. So my bass is going directly to the audio interface. Well, there's a DI box behind, but that's just because I'm gonna show you, compare these to real amps soon. So it splits the signal to my amps and directly to the audio interface. The upper shelf sounds like this. So the idea is to have, like I said, have a distorted sound, which way I do it is there's no low end. I mean, if I take this off, there is. But because SD1 is a guitar overdrive and it cuts lows on guitar, so it does that on bass very dramatically. So I've set the bass just like a basic bass sound. And then I just add this. And it cuts the lows and adds a little bit drive. And then there's noise gate to get rid of all the stuff. And a compressor, without it, it's much more even. So fairly mildly 2-to-1 ratio, quite fast attack, quite slow release. So it's even. So I mean, this doesn't come, I guess I said that as a stock, but any compressor would work. You know, just adjust it to your taste. I like the attack to be fast, the release to be slower, and the ratio, because the SD1 is already compressing the sound, because it drives the amplifier, so it doesn't have to be that high. Okay, then the bottom level, which takes care of the low end. And the compressor is again keeping it even. No, it's really sloppy without compressor and limiter. And together. And I've set the limiter that when I hit really hard, it, limits it. And then the last thing, the output level. So gain staging is important that you don't get wrong kind of clipping. So the input level and the output level volume should be around the same. It's about -6, so I needed to turn this a bit down because there's lots of stuff. So this is kind of my basic sound, bass sound, what I've used on my videos and when I record and stuff. Okay, cool. Then the next one, it's the same, except I have more drive. More like modern distorted bass sound, kind of like a Lemmy vibe. Everything else is pretty much the same. I guess the levels of the compressor, they are a little bit different. So now there's so much gain, just that it doesn't, go bad all the time, but it's just badass. So yeah, that's that. And then I have this kind of like clean sound. Kind of like this 90s rock sound. It's again basically the same. I've added more mids because SD adds mids. So on the previous preset there isn't that much mids, but here it is. And then this is kind of like the 1433 pedal emulation. And I've set it to like it doesn't add distortion or because it's a clean boost. It just adds bite. And again, cuts the low end from the upper row, because this takes care of that. Cool, and there I have higher compression ratio, because the sound isn't basically compressed at all, because there's no SD, no clipping circuit. So I needed to add an 8:1 ratio to keep it under control, because without it, that's that. Fourth bass sound. This is just DI. Oh, it's quite small. Let's put it. This is just, like I said, classic Paltec, TubeTech compressor and the limiter. Many times, especially on pop music and stuff, there's only DI bass, but compressed and limited. So there was the 4 bass presets. This I use basically all the time. And the first 3 one. This I haven't used that much, but it's cool to have. Okay, then let me grab a guitar. So these guitar presets, I've dialed these in with this guitar. Les Paul type mahogany body maple top, EMG active pickups. So if you have passive pickups, that's good to keep in mind. So maybe you need to add the input volume or drive or whatever to get the results you like. But I made this with this guitar. So it sounds like this. good, crunchy JCM 800 sound. It's really close to my other real amplifiers. Actually, while we're at it, let's just compare it fast. So this one, let me turn the 800 on, switch it here. This channel, the demo guitar real amp channel, it has this cabinet, the same cabinet. So I'm recording a direct out from the Soundtrack React load. Then it has this EQ, because these cabs, they're like raw, like how the cab sound. Like my signature IR Valovirta from Jens Bogren, it's mix ready. So what it means that is Jens has EQ'd. First he has created the sound using a certain cabinet with certain speakers, microphones. Well, that's Mesa Boogie with V30s, basically these mics, kinda almost what I have here, and then he has EQ'd it. So what we have on this channel is this one. Okay, then let's switch to Blue Guitar Sound on Iridium. That's just so amazing, 100 watt tube on this size. I don't have as much low end here and don't have the low shelf, because real amps, they have that. So, but that's that. Okay, let's move back to here. It's so good. It's always good to have a reference, so like you heard, this sounds like a real thing. SD, noise gate, 800, Marshall cabinet, a little bit post EQ, and then this is just, when I play myself, it feels nicer. It's basically a room sound. Let me demonstrate. It just widens it a bit. So it's a studio, little bit pre-delay. So this means that how fast the reverb kicks in. So it's like 0.5 milliseconds. So that it's not immediately there, but just like you don't hear it, but you feel it, that it's not on the actual attack. So it doesn't muddy that, but it just comes like right after that, like, you know, room. Okay, that's that. Number 6. Exactly the same settings, same everything, same mics, same EQ, but tape echo. And this channel I'm using, this is a mono in stereo out channel on Cubase, on my DAW. If this would be mono out, then you wouldn't have this effect. That's also a good thing to keep in mind. So when I do these demos and play by myself, I use a mono in stereo out channel, but when I'm recording like my solo album and stuff, there's mono to mono. And then if I want to have a stereo effect, I have a separate bus for the effects, which is a stereo bus. So yeah. Cool. And this doesn't come as a standalone, but it's such a great. It's like an Echoplex. model it after. There's the drive knob and it's great. Okay? And the Marshall, this cabinet, what I'm using, is part of the Marshall cabinet collection. My favorite Marshall cabinet. Basic 4x12, but just with the BV, which means that it has V30s. Then this one is kind of this Van Halen like stereo. So what I've done, like on the post, I split it, the signal into 2 channels, and then I have different delay lengths. Check out. That's cool. Again, same stuff, because yes, there's a lot of ants, lots of you know, it could be a rabbit hole. I've stick to the 800s 25 years, 30 years. That's kind of like, that's my sound, you know. Or the Blue Guitars classic channel, that's the 800 sound. That's, you know, if it ain't broken, why fix it? Keep it. I'm trying to keep things simple. And then, well, this is a bit. This is the kind of like Zakk Wylde thing. So there's chorus, and then it's splitted into 2 800s and 2 cabinets. This is just, I haven't recorded. This is just fun to play sometimes. You know, add a little bit delay and just big sound. Then a JMP. It's part of the Marshall amp collection, doesn't come as a stock. This is just without SD, just like, you know, basic good old rock tone. The same EQ, because if you've seen my videos, I use basically my own signature IR all the time. Because, you know, when I found something, I stick with that. And this cabinet with this EQ, I just love it. So, you know, I use it. Classic rock sound. And then Plexi, same setup, everything except the different amp. And this is cool, the Plexi, because this acts like a real one. When you, even though if you have only the first input in use, and when you crank this up, the sound becomes fatter. So this sound to me, it's kind of like, it's cool rock and roll sound, but what I really like to use this, you know, neck pickup and dial the volume back. these are so close. It's like playing with my plexi. This I love about plexi. I mean, I have used plexi on metal and stuff, but 800 works better on that. But this is just so responsive and dynamic. You know, whatever you do, it's just like. It's nasty, but it's like plexi. Then the next is clean sound. Jubilee clean channel. I like that a lot. It's quite close to my TSL clean channel. So what I have here is chorus, then the Jubilee. As you can see, I have lots of presence and treble because this I've dialed to be used with a neck pickup. That's what I use with cleans. And so on. So this is really clean. I mean, if you hit hard, it can go, but again, depending on your pickups, you might want to adjust the input gain. And this is the cabinet that comes with a Juke. This worked the best. So SM7B and 57, no room mics, because again, the room is here, because I like to have things the same as much as possible. EQ, it's the same, except I didn't feel the need to add any boost to 100K, because I dialed this to be used on a neck pickup, so I don't want the low end to be too like. And then a compressor to even it out, so without it. Again, quite a low ratio. The way I like to use compressor on clean guitars, on distorted guitars, I don't use even when mixing because they're already so compressed because of the overdrive and stuff. But and in general, when I use compressor, clean guitars, bass mixing, I like to use it in a way that it's not obvious that it's compressed, but that it just makes it like a little bit even and more balanced. So the threshold is like -3, so it doesn't, catch up very low on the ratio. And the ratio means that, let's say, this is the threshold, this is a signal. How, if the ratio is 1:1, it goes like this, 2:1 like this, 8:1 like this, 20:1, it's almost like a limiter. So how like a steep the compressor is, where it takes, and then the release is how fast it comes back. So if it's a really fast release, it's kind of pumping, but if it's a longer release, then it kind of keeps the signal like even. So what I have here is, well, actually the release isn't that big on this one. Bass, I had a lot more. I felt that I still want to feel and hear the dynamics of the playing, that it's not like flatted out completely. And the attack is when it passes the threshold, how fast it reacts. So threshold, when the signal reaches above it, then attack, how fast it starts to compress, and the ratio is, the bigger the number, the steeper the, whatever the word is, goes like this. 1:1, it's basically no compression. And the release, how fast it comes like back. That's simple way of expressing compression, at least the way I think about it. And again, the reverb. But it's really cool clean sound. I'm not that big of a fan of Jubilee's OD channel. I prefer more 800. Jubilee's based on 800, but it's a little bit different. But the clean sounds in Jubilee I've always loved. Okay, then I have this is just the cab I showed you, what I used. So if you like recording with a real amp, IR loader, you want to record direct signal, this is the cab I used. And this is the stereo delay I had, but again, if you're recording real amp, you can add this to your insert. So this I actually used on my solo album. And now because there's anything else, it's just a DI signal. On some songs, and then on one song, on one part, I had this. This is called Euge stereo delay Euge. So these are my presets, and there's many amps more, and some of the plugins, like I said, doesn't come as a stock, but these SOFTUBE plugins are so good, and many of them work inside the amp room and obviously alone. I guess this American Class A EQ and the compressor comes as a stock. There's many great stuff as a stock, and they have the summer sale. So my recommendations for a good all-around echo is a Shape Echo, and a good all-around compressor. I need to check the bass sound. The tube check. It's a passive. It's tube compressor, so it acts a certain character. It just makes everything like, ballsy. And this is totally different. It's like really unique. These are great all-around compressors that I use on mixing as well. Hey, hopefully you found this interesting and informative, and the links to these presets are in the description below. So you need to have the amp room, and then some of the stuff I used doesn't come as a stock, so you might want to consider purchasing these, or then use something else. There is like a pedal compressor here, which you can probably use with good results, and so on. If there's any problems downloading those, because I haven't done this before, so after this filming I will save these and we'll download these to a Dropbox link. So please let me know if it works or not, and can you open them, and what happens when you download them to your computer and open the amp room. Will they work or not? I'm very interested to know, because I haven't done this before. Hey, all the best. See you next time. Thanks.